All right, everybody, it's time to get serious and talk about the 5 things. Do I like fatness? Anyway, we need to talk about the 5 things that I hate about the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any new content. I know it's hard to believe, but there are actually 5 things that I hate about this bike. Actually, there's a 5.5. I have a bonus one for you at the end. But we're going to start with an obvious one, and that's going to be the stock tires. So these are your stock tires. Now, this makes sense on the GT model, more road-focused models. But for your Rally Pro is designed to be the off-road model of this lineup. It doesn't make sense to put street tires on an off-road focused bike. So again, the fact that you have to spend money right out of the gate to make your off-road bike off-road worthy makes absolutely 0 sense to me. They didn't even try to do an 80-20, a 70-30. This is 100% road tire. I don't even think I had 1 mile on these tires. I swapped them out immediately. I ordered new tires before I even got the bike here. And again, I swapped them out the first day. There was no point in even trying to go anywhere because I wanted to go off-road. That's the whole reason I bought this bike. If I didn't want to go off-road, again, I would have bought the GT model. And, you know, again, it's perfectly fine for those models if you're going to spend 90 to 100% of your time on the road. The second thing I hate about this bike is going to be the kickstand. Now, when you put the kickstand down and you lean the bike over, it leans over so far that you almost feel like you're going to dump the bike. And another thing is, I like to get up on the bike by standing on the foot peg and swinging my leg over, especially if you have a bunch of gear and luggage on the back. You need to swing your leg up and over. And for shorter people, even me, I'm 6'1", and I still need to stand up on the foot peg, swing my leg over to get on the bike. And the kickstand leans the bike over so far that it's at such an odd angle that you really can't do that. Sometimes, a lot of times actually, I get on from the high side. I step up and over from the high side of the bike. So I went out and I got the kickstand extender, the larger footprint, and I put that on there, and it has helped a little bit. It's not that thick on the bottom. You can buy one, I believe, from Moto that is even thicker, so that will help. There's things you can do to combat that, but again, I spent $20,000 on a motorcycle, and I'm a little ticked off that I got to go out and spend even more money to fix things that are common sense to come with in the first place. So I think that's a very important thing to remember, is if you're going to purchase this bike, it leans over very far, and if you're one of those people that likes to step on the peg to get up over, it's at a very awkward angle. You're going to need to, again, buy a bigger footprint, buy an extension, buy something, especially if you're getting on and off on uneven terrain. One thing I noticed when you're riding off-road is if you put the kickstand down, naturally a normal kickstand will sink in a little bit. But with this already being at a bad angle, if it sinks in just the littlest bit, it's almost impossible to get on the bike. You have to get on from the high side. Again, the larger extension, the larger footprint does help that, but you still got to go out and spend more money to fix a simple problem. The number 3 thing I hate about the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro is the toggle switch for your TFT display is right next to your horn and right next to your indicator switch. Now, I know this is common on a lot of motorcycles, but it's still a problem. I can't tell you how many times getting used to this bike, I've hit the horn or hit the indicators when I'm trying to use the TFT, or I hit the TFT toggle when I'm trying to use the indicators, back and forth, back and forth. Now, of course, that's something that you're going to get used to over time, but it's been almost 1,000 miles now, and I still do it a lot. They are so close that, especially if you're wearing gloves, it's hard to exactly feel where everything is. You have to look down every time, which gets very annoying. You take your eyes off the road. You're not as focused. You're not as a safe rider. There's not a whole lot of other places on the bike to put it. I get that, but it still causes an issue, and it's still something that I very much dislike about this bike. All right, so where are we now? Number 4. The number 4 thing that I hate about the Tiger is the dealer and the aftermarket availability. Now, again, I did mention this in my first impressions video, but I still really haven't been able to find any more. Now, Triumph is trying to launch more dealerships in the US. However, as of now, especially on the East Coast, there's not a whole lot out there. Hopefully that will get better. As far as the aftermarket stuff, I've looked and looked and looked. There is some stuff overseas, and there is a couple places in the US to get things, but it just doesn't seem like the aftermarket availability is there. And again, even if you find a couple places to go to, there's not a lot of options at each place. So, for example, the skid plate. I got the T-Rex skid plate. Now, there were a couple other options, but again, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 options in the motorcycle community and for aftermarket parts is not a lot of options. And it seems like when you do find something like the Bark Busters handguards here, there's only one option for Tiger models, or it just seems like aftermarket places don't put a lot of effort into the Triumph brand. I had this same problem on my Scrambler. It was very hard to find things. I actually did have a dealership tell me that Triumph is very difficult to work with. I don't know if that's a factor. I don't know if that's the reason why people don't do it, but that is a possibility. So please do me a favor. If you know anything other than SW Motec, Triumph Cleveland, British Customs, and places like that, if you know some other ones out there, please let me know. I'd love to go check them out. Give me any tips that you can think of. I would greatly appreciate that. All right, so here we are at number 5. What is the 5th thing that I hate about this bike? And that is the fact that you still cannot go from off-road mode to road mode without stopping the bike. Now, that may be minimal and sound minimal to some people, but around here, you get about a couple miles worth of off-road riding, and then you're back on the road to go to the next place, get a couple miles of off-road, back on the road to go to the next place. You're constantly switching back and forth. So for me here on the East Coast in New York, that is a huge issue. After hours and hours of riding, going back and forth, it really starts to annoy you, and when you're annoyed, you're not having fun riding. I'm not sure why Triumph does that. I don't know if there's some standard that they have to meet with that, but I really wish that they would fix it. You can go between other modes, like in the video you saw on the review video, I went from road to sport without having to stop. All you had to do was roll off the throttle, and it switched automatically. You didn't have to stop the bike completely. Now, even that would be a lot better than having to stop the bike, put it in neutral, switch it over, confirm it, and then go on your way. I don't know if it's a safety feature or what, but I really, really, really hope that they fix this issue. All right, so we're actually going to do 5.5 things I hate about this bike. I have a bonus one for you, but before I get into that, I just want to say I absolutely love this bike. I still give this bike an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. This bike hits so many different needs for me, and all the negatives are they're small. You can get past them. They're not a big deal. They're not going to make it so you wouldn't want to buy this bike. I just wanted to make that clear. I love this bike. I'm not getting rid of this bike. But these are things that you need to think about before you purchase it. So the 6th thing, or the 5.5 thing that I wanted to talk about, is just some of the stock features. Now, all bikes come with stock features that are of lesser value that you need to swap out. But again, this is the highest end model Tiger 900 that Triumph offers. Out the door, it's $20,000. It's $16,995 MSRP, but with all the taxes and fees and everything out the door, it's almost $20,000. You spend that much money on a motorcycle, and then you still have to go and buy handguards because they give you plastic cheap ones that break right away. You got to buy a skid plate because they give you a tinfoil thin plate for a skid plate that you have to switch out, so in case you hit a rock and it doesn't go through the casing of your engine. Again, I'll throw the tires in there. The foot pegs as well. Now, you probably could make the foot pegs work because you can remove the rubber and it is serrated. However, they're very thin and they get very uncomfortable after standing up for so long. So I swapped out the foot pegs as well. So all these things do add up. And again, I love this bike. I still would recommend it to anybody. But out of all these 6 things that I just mentioned, please pay attention to them when you're going and looking at this bike, because they do matter. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.